All right, studying up. You see,
Huntley. Hi, I didn't know you were here. Yeah, I was just reading up on Psychiatry Manipulating Creativity, a magazine by Scientology.
okay.
What a fantastic issue here. Fantastic. One of the best. Goes into Francis Farmer, killed by psychiatric drugs, Marilyn Monroe.
I see.
Really highly recommended.
All right. Well, I've got to kick out the show early, and I want to talk about our sponsors this week.
What?
Yeah. Well, actually, our sponsors this week are somebody different, but they've been a sponsor for a long time, and that's all of you. Seriously.
Wait a minute. Wait. This is an odd sponsor. Huntley, how do they sponsor us?
Oh, we have 348 people currently watching, and you can sponsor us by hitting the like button and subscribing. Seriously, it does help a lot.
Really?
I mean, hey, look, Frito. We got to catch Frito, man. Chris Como. We can't, this cannot stand.
Where is he now? Is he over past us, or?
Oh, he's always been past us. It's shameful. It is shameful.
What about Hinckley? I saw he was selling Hinckley T-shirts yesterday on Twitter.
He is past us too, and he sold out of merch. So it's just I don't know.
I'm embarrassed that Hinckley sold out his merch and we haven't.
Yes, it is. You know what? Maybe we got lucky. So Chris Cuomo is already at 38.7 thousand subscribers. So,
well, some of those could be bots. To be fair, Huntley, they could be Russian bots from CNN.
Yeah, but we might have our own bots. So it's
how do we get bots? This bot thing intrigues me. How do we pay for a bunch of bots? Can we buy like 1,000 bots?
No, we don't do that.
I want to know how the bot business works. In one of these episodes, maybe David Fry knows how the bot business works, or some of these other smart people who understand YouTube.
I'm not sure, but we don't do the bots because that's bad news, and YouTube already doesn't push us at all. So definitely, what does work is all of you, seriously, subscribe. Please tell a friend. That's it. I mean, it helps a bunch, and hitting like in the beginning. That's why all the YouTubers always say,
why do they all say that? They all say at the beginning, they go crazy with that.
Because they're trying to get the algorithm to pick it up and spread it out so people see on their phone, oh, there's a show about Scientology on right now. Let me go check it.
Gotcha. I mean, even Cuomo does it. You know, on his show, he says, subscribe. I'm Chris Cuomo. I'm a little man who needs your help.
Yes, he does. Can you tap your microphone? Because I swear it went out or something.
Yes, no, yep. It's good. We're good.
Nope, it's not. I don't know where it went, but okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, let's continue then. We'll proceed as if we're two people in the same room.
Yes. Won't sound like it, but we will continue and proceed. Let me see. Look at this. Beverly Fitch is saying that she could be our bot. Thank you.
Beverly bot. I like that. Beverly bot. Like the dots. We used to have dots. Now we have bots. We got to connect the bots to each other.
That's true. That's true.
Connection device.
For sure. All right. So on this happy note, we are going to continue with our journey in Scientology, and
That's a big story, Huntley.
It is a big story. That's where you got to go.
Wow.
We left off with this guy here.
Wow, what happened to him? Boy, he really descended into madness. This is in his trailer, I think 1984, 1985, up in San Luis Obispo, California, where he was tended to by Scientology people such as David Miscavige.
It's good family portrait.
Yeah, obviously, you got to have that pillow. And I guess he didn't care about the hair anymore at that point. And yeah, this, he was surrounded by sycophants. At the end, he dies in 86, or he leaves his body, as Miscavige says in the Scientology ceremony. He didn't need his body anymore, and he went. Nobody knows where they go.
Well, I
You know,
thought he stated, what was it, Xenu? Is he with Xenu now?
with Xenu, but I mean, Xenu is kind of like an evil being. I don't know why. Xenu is the one that drops the hydrogen bombs into the volcano, sealing them in. Xenu supposedly a tax assessor, so I don't know if he went to the great IRS in the sky, but I just wanted to show you him at the end because we're going to get into the new era in part 2 of the Miscavige era. But I did not want to write off their paranoia as an organization because they were targeted by the government agencies throughout the early years of Scientology, Eric. They were not completely crazy. They were, I'll give you an example. In 1963, they are raided by the FDA in Washington, D.C. And the raid, they didn't have any IRS gunmen like Biden has just created for the IRS. So the FDA brought in 100 U.S. Marshals into the D.C. headquarters of Scientology with another 100, this is where it gets weird, deputized longshoremen with guns, and the guns were out. From all the reports that I've read, they seized 3 tons of Scientology material. The FDA's beef was with the e-meter. And they seized, again, 3 tons at gunpoint with 100 longshoremen and deputized longshoremen, these cargo guys, keep this in mind, 100 U.S. Marshals, Tommy Lee Jones, going in there and at gunpoint, seizing all the books, the files, and the e-meters, which are then part of a court case that Scientology won. And the judge was so embittered that he had to give everything back to Scientology. This is 10 years later. It takes 10 years. All these cases take like 10 years. He orders them to pay for the storage fees and the fees of the U.S. Marshal Service, the longshoremen, the FDA, and the Scientologist says, all right, whatever, bro. But they get all this stuff back reluctantly.
So the Scientology won.
Yes, they won the case.
They had to pay for the storage of the crap that was taken from them.
Yes, the judge was, again, like the judge in the Flynn case, couldn't accept losing. And it went up to the chain of command, and they said this is a religion and this is their stuff. And again, the e-meter that they were claiming was being used for healing, Scientology never claimed that. The FDA on their own. Anyway, the reason I mention this is because Scientology, before they got aggressive, were the victims of all of these raids around the country and even overseas. They just didn't wake up one night and say we're psycho and aggressive. This was in response to nonstop government raids even in Canada, even in Toronto, even in Australia. In Australia, the Catholic lobby in Australia declared them not a religion. They later were victorious in court. But just to defend Scientology, there's some aspects of them that are defensible. They are very anti-drug. They're recreational drug and acid and heroin and everything else to their credit. You can make the argument that they're anti-psychiatry. Rational people can make that argument too. Yeah. There's aspects of the church that are quite logical and quite rational. Like when you're dealing with Dianetics, before there's the Church of Scientology, these are 2 people sitting together trying to find out each other's secrets that are fears and childhood traumas. This is not, when it first started, it was 2 people doing it to each other. Sounds like I got the check. I just want to say I'm cooperating with the authorities. So now let's get back to 1991, where Time Magazine, through a guy named Richard Behar, writes the first major piece. If you have a cover of Time Magazine, we'll get into the thing that
something better.
Okay, so here is the Time Magazine cover, Cult of Greed. This huge article comes out. Scientology goes berserk and sues them this takes 10 years and tens of millions of dollars on both sides of the aisle. Richard Behar is personally sued. Time Magazine is sued. Time Warner is sued. Time Life is sued. Time, the band, is sued. I think there was a band called Time that hung out with Prince. Anything related to Time is sued. And it takes 10 years, and it goes to the United States Supreme Court. And Scientology loses the suit. However, they lost the battle, but they may not have lost the war, because it puts a cold chill on the rest of the media, Eric, forever wanting to go to war with Scientology over an article. That's why this article is known to be the most important thing in Scientology history, because this loss was actually a victory for Scientology. They threatened to sue anyone who ever came at them again with a major piece.
So is a Pyrrhic victory for Time. In other words, like, it probably cost them a lot to prevail in the end.
They said that internally, that this was a loss for Time Magazine. They never wanted to do it again. And in fact, they never did do it again. It was not worth it. And the chilling effect on the other magazines was even more helpful to Scientology, because they put the fear of God into these magazines, that we may lose a case. And they do this throughout, from 1991 to today. They practiced a scorched earth legal policy on every single case, win or lose. And everyone knows that. So it deters a lot of their critics, Eric.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And they probably have plenty of lawyers who've been converted to their cause.
Well, they're not only that, they have lawyers who are non-Scientologists who they just hire.
Oh, yeah.
Who just do it for the money. Now, we're going to get into another case, because this case is really interesting. Lawfare. Yeah, right, exactly. But they were the origins of this. They are the ones who started this. We're going to get into a fascinating case, because remember, there was a case, I think, in the late 80s where, not a case, but there was a situation in Greensboro, North Carolina, where the commies were fighting against the Klan. And you didn't know who to root for. There's a massive shootout in Greensboro, North Carolina that was filmed by local news. And you got the Klan on one side. On the other side, you've got the commies, right? So the shootout, I think there were 10 dead commies. The Klan was aligned. They brought in some backup, the American Nazi Party. But it was
so in the end, you're kind of going, maybe they can both win?
Yeah, you don't really know what's going on. This is the reason I mentioned that story, is because I'm going to tell you a similar story. In Germany, they began a youth movement of banning or having a protest. When the first Mission Impossible came out, there was a youth group that started to protest Tom Cruise. And this became the Nazis versus Scientology. In one of the great land battles in world history, the Bavarian conservative German, AKA former Nazis, went to war against Scientology. And because of this thing with Tom Cruise, full page ads were taken out in Time Magazine saying the Nazis were launching another Holocaust against Scientology. The State Department weighed in on this, backing up Scientology against Germany. Germany wouldn't buckle. They're very stubborn people, especially in southern Germany. They said that we're not going to buckle. Well, they began to get the lawyer Bert Fields, who was a famous lawyer, happened to represent two unusual characters. He represented both Cruise and John Travolta, Bert Fields. Bert Fields got all of his other clients, non-Scientology clients, to sign a letter of protest that Germany was going full Nazi, or Yahtzee, as David likes to say.
Oh, I'm glad you said it now. Oh, we're saved.
They were going full. They were protesting in this letter, and I don't know who this is, but
Bert Fields.
Oh, Bert Fields. Okay, I think he might be dead by now. But Bert Fields, right, was one of the most powerful attorneys in Hollywood. So all of his clients, and Dustin Hoffman signed it, Oliver Stone signs it, every single guy he represents signs it. They don't even know what they're signing later on, because a couple of them bailed out and said, I didn't realize what I was signing. and they begin to back out of the letter. And they're accusing Germany of discrimination by religion against Scientology. Okay, so that becomes full front page ads. The Clinton administration comes in on it. The State Department weighs in on it. Madeleine Albright. It becomes this cause célèbre. Now, Germany, on the other side, says we have a special antenna. We know when totalitarianism rears its ugly head. We know when
we're the experts.
We're the experts on this. We know when there is one leader like Hubbard or Miscavige who is going to do stuff with people who are zombie followers. We do not allow this in our culture. And in fact, in their constitution, it says this is not allowed. So they do not buckle, and hence becomes one of the great battles of where you don't know who to root for, Scientology versus the Nazis, which eventually kind of dissipated because nobody would buckle on this thing, and Germany banned them from Germany. A couple of countries banned. The French banned them. There were lawsuits. There were battles. Russia banned them, but the EU backed them and said Russia was against religion. This was in the 90s, Eric. So that was an interesting battle. But this comes out of the Time magazine article and leads us back to the United States, where we're going to get into some other items at that time, because this is the era of Miscavige. And or some people say Miscavige. We used to call him Mancavige. And so anytime I mispronounce his name, it's really to be disparaging of him. So Shelly Miscavige, if people want to know what happened to Shelly Miscavige, I can answer that question for you at this time.
Yes, please do. I will pull up
Shelly
the picture.
Miscavige was sent to Lake Arrowhead. There she is on the right. Okay. When Miscavige went on a trip somewhere, I forget, he went to Australia or somewhere he went, and his wife took the opportunity to do these long-needed repairs on the living quarters that they had, moved his stuff out of the office, moved his files out to repair their own living quarter. And when he came back, he flipped out that somebody had touched his files, right? And he banished her to the Lake Arrowhead Center in Bear Mountain, and Big Bear. And she has been there for like 11, 12 years now. And her job is to deal with finding and creating more nuclear-proofed vaults to put in Hubbard's writings, which are engraved in metal. They're not on paper. They're not on in books. What they've done is they've taken all of his works and engraved it in metal. So after the nuclear war, whoever finds this will go, look at these hieroglyphics of this primitive culture. Here's their origin, ladies and gentlemen. And they bury these vaults in the mountains at Big Bear, around where, in this case, where Lake Arrowhead is. And that's where she's been this whole time. You know what I mean? She's been not hiding out. In fact, police have gone up there and she's there and, blah, blah, blah. So she's not dead, and she is still part of the operation. So.
Okay. I know that it's been talked about a lot here and there in the press. I don't really follow it deeply, so I just know. Yeah, she vanished.
But his father, Ron Miscavige, that's an interesting story, because he was followed for 10 years by two private eyes hired by David, who were getting $10,000 a week to follow him. Now, there's two types of private eyes. We'll get in at the end of the show about another one, but there's two types of private eyes. One is where they're in your face. Those are the squirrel busters, and people who follow Scientology know what I'm talking about. They're the ones who want you to see them, and they film you. They got GoPro cameras on their heads. Those are the ones who are harassing you. But there are other private eyes who are never to be seen. And they followed Ron Miscavige for 10 years. And
you froze. Hold on, you froze completely. Can you repeat that?
Okay, so they followed Ron Miscavige for 10 years. Okay, so he was coming out of a Walmart, and he dropped his cell phone out of his jacket, and they thought he was having a heart attack because he fell to the ground getting he's an older man. So they called up David Miscavige, and they said to him, "We think your father is having a heart attack. What would you like us to do?" Because they didn't want to blow their cover, and they also didn't want to blow their $10,000 a week salary.
True. If he's not there next week, that's a bad deal.
They're not going to have a job. So they call up the boss, and they called David Miscavige, and they said, "We think your father is having a heart attack. So what would you like us to do?" So the famous line from David Miscavige was, "If he dies, he dies." And that becomes the name of Ron Miscavige's memoir.
By the way, he died last year.
Right. If he dies, he dies. But the book came out, I don't know, that's 8 years ago.
Right.
Okay. But that's where that comes from. Just a little side note of the cruelty of David Miscavige, who, like we said, started out as an assistant cameraman for the leader of the church. I mean, that photo that you showed where there's a little David Miscavige, L. Ron Hubbard wanted to be a film director, and he directed the training films of Scientology. And there's the miniature Miscavige, and that's L. Ron, who thought he was Orson Welles. So out in Hemet is a base with the state-of-the-art technology. But here on Sunset, about 8 years ago, they bought the KCET, the local PBS station on Sunset, which has studios and was the local KCET PBS station here in Hollywood. They bought that and turned that into another studio for their productions, interestingly enough. So the money that they have goes to a lot of big ticket items, including real estate around the world and, buying up all kinds of buildings in New York and LA. But what I wanted to get into was the situation with the 70s show. But first, let's get into 1993. We'll go backwards a little bit. In 1993, what happens is the 20-year battle between the IRS and Scientology is finally resolved. They hassled this guy Goldberg, who was the head of the IRS. They harassed him so much. And what they did was, as we left off at episode 1 with Operation Snow White, despite the setbacks of 11 of them going to federal prison, they do not buckle. They continue Operation Snow White. And what they do is they file individual lawsuits, 3,000 plus lawsuits by individual members of Scientology against the IRS and Goldberg, the head of the IRS. So they are inundated with this, and they begin to have these hearings. Like I said, they wiretapped the IRS, they stole the documents, they infiltrated the computers, they did all this stuff. But Goldberg is allowed to understand that all of this will go away if he grants nonprofit IRS tax status to a church. And Goldberg says, "Are you sure?" And they say yes. And there it is. There it is.
Wow. You kind of have to respect them in a very twisted way.
I know. They would not buckle. And he, like I said last week, they owed $1 billion in taxes. So it wasn't like they were just doing this for fun. They were finished. If they could not get this fine. Now look at it from their point of view. They say they're a religion. By the way, their cross, their insignia that they have, is a phony Christian cross that's designed to deceive. You know what I mean? That cross has nothing to do with Christianity or anything else. It's a deception. But part of it is trying to make it seem like they're a religion, which they essentially, if anybody else is. The closest thing most of the critics talk about is Mormonism, Eric. Mormonism had certain, this is the cross on top of Scientology, and that was designed to deceive people into thinking it was a religion. It has nothing to do with Christianity at all.
Well, it's almost like an X'd out cross. If you really look at it, it could be cheeky. Like
right.
They went,
But remember with Mormonism, how they used to have in the old Mormonism, I don't know if you remember this, that African Americans were linked to Satan. And they had imagery of early African Americans with horns coming out of their heads.
They said about Indians too.
I don't know about Indians, but I remember seeing the drawings of African Americans with horns and satanic references to African Americans. Well, what happened is they took so much heat, so much flack that they did away with it. They had a reformation. And people believe that what Scientology needs is a reformation. And they could continue after in a post-Miscavige world if they begin to have a reformation. Now, they can't really have a reformation because of KSW. A KSW is Keep Scientology Working. And that is being professed by Tom Cruise. And that means honor the original text, word for word, of L. Ron Hubbard. The leading proponent of this is Tom Cruise. It's called KSW. And this is a pushback, almost like, in the Vatican I versus Vatican II, Mel Gibson and his father being adherents to Vatican I, and other people, not just those two, but I mean, many people adherents to Vatican I, Vatican II, is, again, the church coming into the modern era. So there's pushback by original members of the church, and that is called Keep Scientology Working. And there is that video of Tom Cruise in the turtleneck, the black turtleneck video, is Tom Cruise talking about KSW. And that's why that video has been viewed so many times by Scientologists.
You linked that on Locals, I think, correct?
Yeah, I put that up for the Locals people. Now, that is the church's spiritual technology is also based in Lake Arrowhead, and that's where Shelly is. And that's the movement to go back to this is really in the weeds, but some people who like following this subject may appreciate where I'm going. They're the origin storytellers. They want to keep the same thing going and not deviate at all. And, there's a lot of anti-gay stuff in Dianetics. There's a lot of misogyny in Dianetics. It was the stuff from 1958, 1948, 1949, 1950. And they refuse to change that. So they're kind of stuck in a weird spot because it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. I mean, I don't get into the misogyny that's in there, but it is crazy, man. And also the gay stuff is obviously crazier. But nevertheless, I mean, that's what leads Paul Haggis, as we discussed, to leave the church, because he had two lesbian daughters who were, by the way, smoking hot. I don't want to say anything, but two daughters are hot. And he's going to go on trial. Haggis is going on trial for the raping of this woman. And Haggis, there's an article today, as a matter of fact, because the trial is coming in October in New York. And hopefully we can do a follow-up on this. But Haggis,
so we have him and Masterson to follow up if we want to really get to
trial. So Haggis claims, this is interesting, that this is payback for him leaving the church and being in the movie Going Clear, the Alex Gibney CIA movie with Lawrence Wright, the author of the book Going Clear. So what he claims, Haggis, is they have long memories and they never forget, and they're trying to destroy him. So the woman who is suing him, put in an order today in the court to disallow any mention of Scientology by Paul Haggis. And the ruling has not come down yet. I'm just mentioning because I read that today. This is a very interesting move on the part of the woman.
Is she a Scientologist herself?
She says no. But again, Haggis says that doesn't matter because they have a long history of paying other people.
I was going to say, who's paying her bills? You've got the Peter Thiel, Hulk Hogan situation where, remember, he funded Hulk Hogan and took out Gawker from the side. So
that's right.
We could have learned from him.
Not really a defense. But anyway, so I just want people to keep an eye on that case because it's going to be interesting what turns out. Now, we're going to move into something which nobody covers, which only I cover, and that's called Narconon. And you say, well, what is Narconon? How important can this be? It's not Synanon, it's Narconon. Synanon, there's one of the bases, I think that's in Oklahoma. They have created a rehab called Narconon. Now, Synanon, we're going to have a separate episode. That was Chuck Dietrich, and that became a separate cult of Synanon, which has nothing to do with Narconon. Synanon was like the first drug rehab program for heroin addicts that turned into a cult and rattlesnakes and everything else. But Narconon tried to operate under the guise of having nothing to do with Scientology. And drug addicts have gone in there. Now, the treatment is what's so controversial because they claim 85 to 100% cure rate. And anytime I see the 85 to 100, now I covered as many of you know, I covered that as a beat for the LA Weekly, corrupt rehabs and fraudulent rehabs was my beat as a beat writer for the Weekly. So I wanted to go undercover into Narconon, but I didn't have the gonads to do it. I went into others, but I really, even I did not have the balls to go into Narconon because I'll tell you what, their treatment is that you sit in a sauna day after day after day, all day in a sauna with niacin fed to you to where your kidneys, and there are people who have died from this, from an overdose of niacin. Then when you come out of the sauna, you're trained to point to certain objects on the table, a lamp, a chair, a book, and you're supposed to say book and lamp. And they retrain you on how to speak and point out these objects. And they believe that eventually you'll be able to move them using, what is it, telepathy? Or what would be the movement?
Telekinesis, I think.
Telekinesis, that's the word I'm like. Thank you, Mr. Hunley. Telekinesis is one of the side products of their detox of drugs from your system. They believe that the drugs, the remnants of the drugs, are hiding out in the fatty tissue of your body. Now, there's no scientific evidence to this. And indeed, it's a space age looking place. It's not priced any worse or less than some of the other top places like Betty Ford. It's about $30,000 to $40,000 a month. However, there's no scientific evidence that any of this stuff works. And in fact, people have died. Okay, so in here, and they've been caught repeatedly trying to convert the patients to Scientology. They always deny it. They always get caught. They immediately roll you into Dianetics and into Scientology. In fact, the drug counselors are Scientologists. The people running the places are Scientologists. Communities have fought not to have Narconon in their neighborhoods, NIMBY style. There's maybe one of their meetings or something. I'm not sure what that is, but
this is their auditorium or whatever. It looks chillingly like something else, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. That's a pulpit if I've ever seen one.
Right. So Narconon has been fighting separate legal battles for years. And the reason I mention Narconon is because some celebrities who are in the church have gone to Narconon. This is Lake Arrowhead, I think.
It's tied in. That's the establishment is Lake Arrowhead, Narconon.
Right. Okay. So Narconon has had celebrities like Juliette Lewis, who has gone there. In other words, they give celebrity endorsements to these places. In other words, Juliette Lewis says she quit drugs and alcohol at the age of, I want to say 22. I mean, she was in Cape Fear, I think when she was 17. One of the great performances of all time with Robert De Niro, despite what you think of them. And she was in Natural Born Killers, obviously, with Woody Harrelson, the Oliver Stone movie. Incredible actress. Has a band called Juliette Lewis and the Licks. Now, Juliette Lewis and the Licks is an interesting band because everyone in that band, here they are. Yeah. I don't know. Juliette Lewis and the Licks. Everyone in the band is a Scientologist, except for one guy, a friend of mine named Paul Ill, who unbelievably plays bass in that band. And he is the sweetest guy you ever want to meet. And they have hammered him for years to join. And to his credit, Paul has never buckled and not joined And he's still, I don't know if he's still in the band, but Paul Ill, who is a great bass player, great rock and roll musician, refused to buckle. And I guess they just left him alone after a while. They just gave up. But I don't think he's still with him. And I don't know the status of Juliette Lewis and the Licks, but she claims to have gone to Narconon to be cured. Now, there's another woman, young actress, who went to Narconon, who also claimed to be cured. That's the ambulance taking them to Narconon that just went by.
Or coming for you to take you.
Yeah, but okay, so there's a woman, this woman here went to Narconon. This is before she went in. This is Kirstie Alley, and she had a drug and alcohol problem. You know, like many people in Hollywood, this is not unusual, not in America, for that matter, never mind Hollywood. But this is what Kirstie Alley looked like before she went into Narconon. Now, when she came out, she looked a little different. And she claimed that, oh boy, you had to show that, didn't you, Hunley?
Hey, you know, what do you want?
Okay, so.
But she's cured.
This is not to body shame.
No,
I'm not trying to body shame her. What I'm trying to say is that addiction migrates and it'll go to different addictive substances, addictive behaviors. And just because you do not take drugs and alcohol does not mean you don't addictively eat food, addictively do sex, addictively gamble, or addictively do anything else. Clearly, it's gone into food for her. Again, this is not to body shame her at all. I'm just trying to talk about addiction. There's different programs that she could be part of, like OA and some other programs, 12-step programs, which she could use. But they claim that Narconon cures addiction 100%. And if that's the cure, what we're seeing here, then we have kind of the idea that Narconon may not be as effective as they claim, because there's different kinds of substances that can be addictively used, and obviously food, alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, work, whatever it is. It pops up like the finger in the dike, springs leaks. Addiction is about springing leaks. It's a constant, you know, it's kind of like diabetes or asthma. They're lifelong, as NIH says, addiction, like diabetes and like asthma and like a kidney situation, are lifelong chronic illnesses without cure that need lifetime treatment. That's the definition of NIH in regards to the comparison between addiction and these other situations.
I had Doug Kramer on, who has a Scientology channel. Mm-hmm. And I think he went through, I don't know if he went to Narconon, but he went through their rehab like 3 times. And he told me it was just horrible. And it took him getting the niacin. That's how I knew about niacin. Immediately. He said it's horrible what it does to them. And then, of course, he's been through
2 guys died in Italy. 2 guys died in Italy from kidney renal failure. And that's related to overdose of niacin. I mean, that's what caused their death. And they've settled these lawsuits for years. But this is killing people now. This is not fun and games about an e-meter reading or anything else. I mean, this is death. So be careful about Narconon. And because they look and sound, and their website looks like any website for Betty Ford. If you go to the Narconon,
that's where those pictures came from.
Oh, yeah.
Their site. Yeah. I mean,
And the amenities are as good as Passages or any of the top-notch money places in Malibu, you know. Anyway, so I just wanted to address Narconon because of those 2 issues. Now, let me get into the schools, because that's another thing. They have tried to infiltrate with drug education into the school systems around the country, kind of like their own DARE program, Eric, where they would come in for free and teach kids not to take drugs in a Nancy Reagan style. And of course, as soon as they get in there, out comes the literature, Dianetics, and everything else. And they've been caught repeatedly. They did the same thing in the LA city schools. They got kicked out. The LA county schools got kicked out. San Francisco in 2008 got kicked out. And they've been caught repeatedly coming in under the cover of an anti-drug children's program. You got to give it to them. They never buckle. So in 2008, these 2 people opened up a private academy in Calabasas, very wealthy private school, kindergarten to 6th grade. And it turns out that the books being used once again were Hubbard's books, and they said the school was teaching Montessori style learning to the children. It's a private school; it's not public now. So they brought in, again, they were caught with Scientology instructors, Scientology textbooks, indoctrinating the kids, kindergarten through sixth grade, private school, cost about $50,000 a year in Calabasas. Now, who was running this? Who was running this school where they got caught in 2008? I'm going to tell you right now who it was. Jada Pinkett and Will Smith, bro.
Oh, my God.
That's right, because they are secret Scientologists. And what happened on the floor of that Academy Awards, that's why Will Smith looked like Tom Cruise. That smugness, that arrogance was two Scientologists who couldn't tolerate being criticized in public. That's what they do. And that's what they did. And they could deny their connection to Scientology all they want. But he spent millions on this school, Will Smith. She ran this school, and this goes back to 2013 until the school finally collapsed. But they put in millions and millions of dollars. And what you saw, this is my opinion, on the floor of that Academy Awards that night were two Scientologists who don't have a humorous bone in their body coming at them, coming after Chris Rock, both of them. And that's, if you change Will Smith to Tom Cruise, I think people would understand it. And you say, well, Tom Cruise, you know, he's an arrogant guy. That's all the Scientologists. You know, when we get into Battlefield Earth, which we're going to get into now, remember that one man has made more science fiction movies than any other actor in Hollywood, and that's Will Smith, my friend. Nobody makes more science fiction movies, and that's a homage to Hubbard. That's what's going on there. And that's why Battlefield Earth was made. Battlefield Earth was supposed to be two movies, and it was released in 2000, but the book came out, a huge book, 900-page book. They wanted to make it into two movies, Battlefield Earth and Battlefield Earth 2. Here's the original poster. This comes out in 2000, and nobody will touch this. And when they're in pre-production, I'm talking about when they're trying to get this made, because the studios don't want to be involved with Scientology. However, Travolta is coming off the success of a movie called Pulp Fiction. And the first director attached to this is Tarantino. And he bails. Tarantino gets out and knows that he's got to get out of this thing. Tarantino bails out, and they're shopping around for different directors. This is obviously him playing the evil character, which leads to some toys even, you know, the spin-off toys.
Hey, you don't have a movie without merch, dude.
Right. Hold on for a second on that one. But yeah, here's some of the merch. The guy's name, Elie Samaha. Elie Samaha Franchise Pictures produced this. It was distributed by Warner Brothers and also Morgan Creek. But Elie Samaha was a guy who he was an Israeli, started to become a producer. You say, well, how does he get into the business? Elie Samaha with Franchise Pictures. He starts making movies with stars in them by telling the stars, I will make your movie, but you're only getting $1 million in salary. And they go, okay, I'll give you a big back end. And they go, okay. So Franchise Pictures with Elie Samaha produces Battlefield Earth because he believes that a movie with Travolta is going to make his money back. And how does he get into the movie business? Who is Elie Samaha? Well, he's got a dry cleaning store in Beverly Hills. And all of his customers are movie stars from Beverly Hills. You ever see when they put the picture up on the wall in the dry cleaning store? They got this signed picture, you know, wish you were here, love Eli, thanks for the pants.
Yeah, like delis and all that.
Right, but they have that in dry cleaning places too. It's the same thing as a deli. So Elie Samaha is that guy in Beverly Hills, eventually becomes a movie producer. And he puts together a budget for this, I think it's $73 million. And it grosses $29 million. So that's not good. Unfortunately for Elie Samaha, he lies about the budget and overestimates it on purpose to get investors by close to $40 million. He then gets sued, has to file for bankruptcy, eliminating Franchise Pictures. So the spinoff from this, of the debacle of Battlefield Earth, is long. Now, Travolta, supposed to be a sequel that never happened. Travolta says the movie made money eventually made money through DVD sales and books and toys and everything. That's highly disputed by experts, by the way.
He just had Scientology members buy it. Here, buy it. Buy more.
Right. They probably did. But the first attempt to do this type of picture was in 1982, going back to 1982, with a movie called Inchon. Now, the Inchon movie, if you could show that poster, is the first attempt. Oh, that's us.
Yeah, it's still us. Hang on.
Oh, okay. The Inchon movie is the story of Douglas MacArthur and the Korean War. Okay, and it has Laurence Olivier playing Douglas MacArthur, and there's a whole mess of stars in it. It's actually not so bad. It's got like
was that his last movie?
What's that?
Was that his last movie?
Close to the end. It's got Ben Gazzara in it, Toshiro Mifune, Jacqueline Bisset is in it. Up on the top, you see Ben Gazzara, Jacqueline Bisset. It's got Richard Roundtree as the black guy, and also Battlefield Earth has Forrest Whitaker as the black guy. Gotta have the black guy. And I don't think Forrest Whitaker ever went to Scientology. So Richard Roundtree shows up in this movie. However, the reason I'm showing this is because this movie was funded by the Unification Church and Reverend Moon. And that's why these two movies are of interest in this show. They both lost money, but in the battle of the cults, because last week we were talking about Unification Church versus Scientology. So there's also the battle of the movies of the cults. So Inchon is Unification Church's movie. That was $46 million in 1982 money, Eric. I don't know what that would be now. Probably 4 times that, I guess, right? And this grossed $5.2 million, right? So obviously this did worse than Battlefield Earth. But I don't know if this was before DVD, so maybe they forced the Unification Church members to buy the VHS copy of this. I'm not sure.
Crazy. I'm doing a poll right now while you're talking.
Okay.
I want folks to which religion is more powerful? Why don't we put it out there? The Moonies, or Scientology?
I don't know. It's a tough one, man, because you're talking about an arms merchant in Reverend Moon. You're talking about his connection to the Republican Party, and Scientology connected to the United States government in many instances. The State Department backing them up. Bill Clinton eventually declared that Germany was wrong, and he threatened Germany with that thing I was talking about earlier. So I don't know. But the reality of it is, these are two powerful organizations and two very, very bad movies. So I mean, people could vote on the two, and maybe we can have a thing about it. But I wanted to move back to TV with the 70s show because I had a friend named Kurtwood Smith, who's a great actor. And Kurtwood Smith invited me to do a number of episodes on the 70s show. And like I said, I ended up in a hot tub with, what's her name? I forgot the woman's name now. The actress, the child.
Oh, Laura?
No, it was a child actress. What was her name? Brooke Shields.
Oh.
So anyway, I did a couple episodes, but on that show was Danny Masterson and Laura Prepon. It's Kurtwood. He's a great actor. I mean, great guy. He is not a Scientologist, but these other two, Laura Prepon and Danny Masterson, were on the show. And they were, by the way, Scientologists work in pairs. So if you see a movie, there's two of them in there. If you see Battlefield Earth, Barry Pepper's in Battlefield Earth. So there's two guys in every movie. I don't know if there's two Unification. Yeah, there's Laura. She recently left the church, and Remini is really angry at her for not speaking out that she left the church and denouncing them. But to her credit, Laura may not want her family harassed.
Right, and you don't always have to be out there marching. I can understand that. Like the guy Doug Kramer I was talking about.
Yeah.
He said, I think he went through 10 or 15 years of therapy before he felt comfortable enough to even come out and talk about this stuff.
Also, and there's Danny Masterson. Now, he's going to have a couple of trials here in LA for rape of Scientology women. But he has not left the church, interestingly enough. And Miscavige has issued statements to the church defending him. So this is the opposite of the Haggis case. We'll see which one plays out here, because this has Gasson on his back, the communist district attorney here in Los Angeles, defender of all women, who says that all women must be believed. As I don't know if Karl Marx was a rapist, but somehow that was in the original Marxist text or something. But in the 70s show, it's odd that it's about the 70s, which is kind of the glory years of Scientology. And I don't know if that's relevant or not, but I just wanted to go into the celebrity portion of the episode, because there's so many episodes, so many people in this episode who are Scientologists, who are celebrities, that with Eric, I just wanted to go through them. Now, the first one, here's Barry Pepper, and that's obviously in Saving Private Ryan. He works in Battlefield Earth, and he looks pretty sane there. I don't know what the problem is. Barry
Pepper, to dinner, back to Danny.
I mean, he's a great actor. Don't get me wrong. It is Masterson, yeah.
She's a sweetie.
Oh, yeah. This one always goes under my radar. That's Elizabeth Moss.
What I love about this, though, is you're talking about Scientologists playing in a movie essentially about cults, from what I understand.
Right. That's they do not choose their movies haphazardly. Let me just put it that way. There is something in these movies. Might be an anti-psychiatry theme. It might be, anti-drug theme. They choose movies for a reason. And here's Giovanni Ribisi. His sister is Marissa Ribisi, and his mother is Gay Ribisi, all Scientology. The mother was managing these two people. And I could just maybe get into a segue here at this time. I wrote a script that I was going to direct about Sonora House, called Sonora House. And I was casting the film, and Ribisi read for it. Both of them, I think, the brother and the sister. And the guy playing me was Jason Lee. Now, Jason Lee, you may remember My Name is Earl and Mallrats, and he did the Kevin Smith movies. Totally hip guy, totally funny guy. He's recently moved to Texas and may have given up on Scientology. I'm not sure. I think he moved to Denton, Texas. But he brought in these other people. This guy was supposed to play me in the movie. Oddly enough, yeah.
It's the hair, man.
Yeah.
It's got to be the hair.
Right. And Joey Lauren Adams from Mallrats was a friend of mine, and she was also in the movie and brought in Jason Lee to play me. So she was a friend who brought this guy in. And he used to be a skateboard champion or whatever he was, but one of the hippest Scientologists I've ever met in my life. This guy was a great guy, and he never said a word about any of this stuff, regardless. But I mention it because they work in pairs, and they also have some sort of talent that they've learned through the Scientology acting school that was mentioned last week. Somebody in the comment section put up the guy's name. It's a Greek name. I forget his name, Tholasaki or something. And he funneled young actors into the church where they had different showcases. They would have an acting showcase that you'd get invited to. And sometimes you'd have to go to that restaurant, Eric, if you could put up that Renaissance menu at the Celebrity Center. That is the menu for a non-existent restaurant that seems to be up there that has no food in it. I found that in between the week. Yeah, there is. And it's upstairs in the top of the Celebrity Center there. Yeah, located the corner of Franklin and Bronson across. Yeah, that's where the guy with the swords was machine gunned to death. I guess he had ordered something from the restaurant that didn't come fast enough, but
he didn't like it.
Okay,
very dissatisfied.
Right. So now I want to get into another story about Sonny Bono. Now, Sonny Bono was a member of the Church of Scientology, but Sonny Bono becomes the United States Congressman. So Sonny Bono wants to leave the Church of Scientology. He doesn't want to be involved with this as the United States Congressman. And he is kidnapped by Scientologists and taken to a cabin in Big Bear, where they browbeat him day after day to not leave the Church of Scientology. And a friend of mine, the guy on the right, Chaz, told me this story how she had to go up there and rescue her own father from the clutches of Scientology in that cabin. So a lot of my stories are first person, which I thought this was a fascinating story because they fought tooth and nail not to let Sonny Bono leave the church. They wanted to have a U.S. congressman in there, and that was not to be, my friend. So that was an interesting Hollywood tale, and we could get into the tale of, I don't know, Isaac Hayes at this point.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we'll go to
I know
music.
you love this one of Isaac Hayes. I don't know what you're going to show here, but I'm sure we're going to get copywritten if you put anything up there. But
well, I will. We'll go ahead and pull up his picture. We'll talk about him a little bit. I have a little video piece that is relevant.
We're never going to survive on link.
Whatever. People will enjoy it live. And
Can
then
we put it up as a link or?
People enjoy it live.
Why don't we put it at the end so it gets
It
cut?
doesn't matter. We'll let them know. Hey, if you don't see it now, go watch this on Rumble. If you don't see it now, go join us on Locals and watch it. So it's fine.
All right. So Isaac Hayes joins in the Church of Scientology, and they're going after a lot of musicians of color, people like Chick Corea, and he's in for a long time. But he doesn't really have any money anymore until he ends up working on South Park as Chef. And the voice of Chef does an episode called Trapped in the Closet, one of the great episodes of all time, about Tom Cruise being in the closet. And that's what the episode is. And he is pressured by the church, Isaac Hayes, to no end, telling him he's got to leave the show, but it's his only form of income. And this leads to him having a stroke. The pressure from this, he has a stroke and he could barely talk. And he has to quit the show because of pressure from Scientology. So to make money, they put him on tour as a stroke victim where he could barely talk, let alone sing. And that is one of the saddest stories in music history of the Isaac Hayes touring as a stroke victim with handlers of Scientology at his side. And he was in the front of the band playing keyboard, trying to sing Shaft, right on. And he could barely talk, and very sad. And then he
bastard. You just totally killed the comedic effect that I was going to have with what I shared.
I don't know what you do for a living, but the reality of it is he died soon after, and it was very sad that he died. And the Isaac Hayes, he had a stroke, went broke, and it's no joke. I'll just leave it at that.
Anyway, the Trey and whomever, the guys who did South Park, didn't take it well with the pressure of Scientology. And so when he left the show, well, they helped him leave the show in a perfectly...
That was harsh, but a very good ending to his character.
It was. I'm sorry. If you didn't see the clip that was just played,
right,
check it out on Locals, or it probably still be on Rumble. I had to remove it due to copyright stuff. So just so everybody knows.
Because they have some more stuff here. My girlfriend joins a group called the Forum in New York, and Forum is maybe we'll do an episode on the Forum. It's a spinoff of Werner Erhard's Est. So she goes to join this forum, and I don't want to give that away because that may be a separate episode. But they're calling it home. They're trying to get her money and blah blah blah. We live in Manhattan at the time. So I hear about this organization called CAN, C-A-N. It's a cult awareness network. And I go over there on 45th Street, New York, and it's a bunch of people who are dealing with cults. And it's a hotline number to call, and it's a bunch of phones, and people just, answering the phone saying, this one's a cult, that one's a cult, be careful. There was a bunch of Orthodox Jews in there too. I don't know what that was about. But I went up there and I said, what's the deal with the Forum? And they started explaining to me the Forum and everything else. And in the Cult Awareness Network, because they said Scientology was a cult, Scientology sued the Cult Awareness Network in a scorched earth. They had no money. They won the lawsuit. As part of the lawsuit, They got the office, the phones, the files, and everything else that the Cult Awareness Network had, put their own people in the phone banks, answering the phone saying, Cult Awareness Network, how can we help you? And would direct people away from Scientology who were calling up asking if Scientology was a cult. Now that is a mastermind, evil, legal maneuver. And the Cult Awareness Network was destroyed by Scientology, taken over, and used by Scientology to deflect away from people calling to see if they were a cult. Now, I just thought that was incredible.
It's dark.
And that's very dark, bro. Now, almost as dark as them going down to...
Is this true?
What's that?
Somebody just wrote, the forum turned into landmark education.
That's true. That is true. It was
Oh, my God.
Went to the forum and then landmark. And I'm going to do that in an episode because I infiltrate the forum in another episode. So that will be separate. I can't get into it today, but I do go there because I just had to check it out.
Of course you did.
Anyway, so when there are these natural disasters like Haiti, earthquakes and stuff, they now send Scientologists down to heal the people in these yellow shirts. They've been sending them around the world, I think since like 2010, sending them around to help out with different healing techniques. And obviously the book comes out at some point, Dianetics. There was a photo I sent to Eric, I don't know if you saw it, but they're sitting in the rubble in Haiti and a guy takes out Dianetics and they're trying to show the Haitians how to become Scientologists. Like they have any interest in any of this, but they're going to run into voodoo very shortly, I think, and some machetes down there if they keep pushing the Scientology in Haiti. But what I'm trying to say is they're expanding worldwide into disaster areas and using that as an excuse to get in and infiltrate behind the disasters and try to convert people from that level, which is really, really bizarre.
Wow.
Yeah. There's also a situation, like I mentioned earlier, about the private eyes. The private eyes have been used by them for years and years and years. The good private eyes are the ones, when I say good, I mean the ones that you see are the ones that are the squirrel busters who come out and harass you nonstop 24/7 until you snap. They did this even to Mike Rinder, and they did it to the guys who came out and denounced Scientology. Marty Rathbun eventually snaps. There's video on his website, of Marty's website, where he's surrounded by the squirrel busters and he rips off one of their pair of sunglasses and they call the police, and Marty is put in handcuffs and taken away by the police, which is what they want. They want you to snap and get arrested for harassing them. And it's really interesting because they're going after the guy who invented it or promulgated it the most, was Marty Rathbun. He knew exactly what it was because he did it. And they still got to him. They still got him arrested. So they would use these private eyes to do this kind of dirty work. But they also use private eyes to dig up dirt on people. When they tried to get into Clearwater, Florida, they hire them. They work for them, and they're part of the church. They would dig up dirt. Let me back up a little bit, because they even did this to Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman, when she was married to Tom Cruise, her father was a pretty famous psychologist, and she wouldn't disconnect from her father. And Nicole Kidman was talking to her father, and they said, this is an untenable situation. So what they did was they used the private eyes to dig up dirt on Nicole Kidman, and apparently she had cheated on Tom Cruise. They showed this to Tom Cruise, who eventually breaks up with her to get rid of her. I'm just using this as one model of how they do this. Now, keep in mind, all the dirt they want on any of their members are in these handwritten files from your e-meter readings. Those, they have those on Travolta, they have those on Tom, they have those on everybody, and people know certain things that are in there because people have access to that. So which is why Laura Prepon may not have wanted to go to war with them like Leah Remini did.
Sure.
I mean, there might be things in there that she didn't want released to the press. People are intimidated by this,
Yeah.
Right. So dig this. So they have these guys who run around who are their muscle. And these are the guys who are private eyes who, like Pelicano. It's not that Pelicano is one of them, but Pelicano types. Anthony Pelicano is a famous private eye in Hollywood, went to jail for wiretapping studio executives, came out, and he's back to being some kind of a private eye. I'm not really sure what, but not that Pelicano did this, but who knows? I don't know if Pelicano ever worked for them, but they had their other secret police that they used. And if you take a look at some of their work, you will see that these guys have nefarious, weird backgrounds themselves. So we did a piece at Lampoon before I was there called Diuretics. And I'll tell you this. This was in 1984. We did a parody of Dianetics. It was called Diuretics. And maybe, Eric, here it is. Now, we never heard the end of this. And this was the year before I even started there. So I have nothing to do with Diuretics. But it's like a 5-page piece with e-meters and all kinds of photos and stuff like that. Yeah, that's Georgia Golia. On the upper right-hand corner, that's the publisher of Lampoon, Georgia Golia, as L. Ron Hubbard. That's a great photo. And you see these different, it's a really funny piece. I got to give it to him. Let me see here. Who else is in? That's the Travolta one up on top, Chick Corea on the bottom. What's your name in the middle?
Karen Black.
Karen Black, yeah, it was another one. But holy cow. So anyway.
Pudding Pop?
Oh
Brady Bunch?
Wow, hold on, let me blow this up. I want to take a look at that. Oh, there's Andy and Michael Simmons right here, Maddie's sons, doing the e-meter readings. Wow. I haven't looked at this in a long time. It's Michael Simmons and Andy Simmons. Very funny. Anyway, yeah. So we did that, and I don't know. I wasn't there yet. So anyway, I leave Lampoon, and I am at MTV, as a publisher and editor of my own magazine at MTV called MTV To Go Magazine, which we did an episode on, which is down below. So I get a call on the phone from a guy, and he says his name is Eugene Ingram. And yeah, this is a guy who calls me on the phone, right? And I don't know what he looks like, but he says, I'd like to stop by your office. Now, my office is in the Bertelsmann building on 46th Broadway, in the old RCA Records building. So I said, yeah, sure. What do I know? The guy wants to come over and talk to me. So he comes into my office, and you could see that he's got a weapon right here. Okay, you can see that he's got a pearl handle, what looked like a pearl handle 38 revolver, although he didn't take it out. And he says to me that I was fired by Maddie Simmons, which is true. I was fired twice by Maddie Simmons, as a matter of fact. And then they sued me for taking this magazine venture to MTV, which I did not. MTV came to me, and the lawsuit was settled very quickly. But anyway, Ingram asked me to get revenge on Maddie Simmons by wearing a wire and going into his office. And I don't know what would happen after that. But I said, really, it's fascinating. And I was making believe like I wanted this to happen. So I wanted to stretch this out and see where it was going. So he called me up, Ingram, and he then, after I told him I was not going to do it, he went to my apartment neighbors, the two guys, Andy Simmons and Michael Simmons' apartments neighbors, and he knocked on their doors telling them that we were pedophiles and drug dealers. So the neighbors, to their credit, said, yeah, we already know that. The neighbors, this being New York, the neighbors said, yeah, we know. We're pedophiles and drug dealers ourselves. But yeah, all around my neighbors came to us and said, this nut knocked on our door, and we sussed it out pretty quickly. What was going on? He was trying to smear us. So he was trying to destroy Maddie Simmons. Now, keep in mind, this is like 7 years after the thing was 6 or 7 years. This is 1990 that he's doing this, Eric. And I am at MTV. These guys are not even there themselves anymore. And Maddie, I think, sold the magazine. to show you the long memory of what they were. And he still wanted revenge, and the church wanted revenge for simply putting up a parody of Dianetics. That was our crimes against humanity, was putting up, and I wasn't even involved, but he was saying that I should be getting revenge against Maddie. It was an attempt. I had no beef with Maddie.
Sure.
I had no beef. But he wanted me to wear a wire and go in there, and I don't know what I would find out by wearing the wire. But I thought it would be interesting to show some of the articles that came out about Ingram.
Well, are we going to show a little more about him?
Yeah, here's a couple of photos of Ingram. Yeah, I think this is a Scientology party. Here he is with LAPD friends, former LAPD guys. He used a lot of his LAPD connections. This is
a new place.
Yeah. He a couple of girlfriends there. I think this is down in Mexico for some reason.
Cabo.
Cabo. Yeah. This is down in Cabo. This is gold-based. That's Hemet. Anyway, so it turns out that he used to run a bordello as the sergeant for LAPD. Well, that's the Cabo thing, right? Yeah.
Right. That's his place.
In the 1980s, before he got fired by LAPD, taking his badge away, he ran a horror house in Koreatown, a bordello. Him and some other LAPD cops ran a bordello in the middle of Koreatown, which was it was an apartment building, essentially. It was an apartment building. And he was fired by LAPD and was linked to numerous other crimes. Investigation, this is from 1981. So I think the, late 70s, early 80s. This is about him. This is his background. This is Eugene Ingram. Church's private eye. This is from Tampa. Police chief condemns his eavesdropping. He would put in wires and do things of that nature for the church. Just to show you my personal interaction with this guy. This is some murder case. Paulette Cooper, I think it is. They try to frame her for a murder because she had written a book against Scientology. And my friend Tony Ortega has a book out on Paulette Cooper, by the way, which I put in the comment section. There's a link to Tony Ortega's book, which I highly recommend. Officer case witness is charged with murder. Yeah. So this guy is their dirty trickster for years and years and years and years. Gene Ingram, was the name that everybody knew as the muscle of Scientology. This is a warrant for his arrest, I think, out of Tampa, if I can't see these.
Yep. Something in Florida, and then there's one more. Okay. Indicted on sex charges. Okay, interesting. So, busy guy.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. Now, here's why it's of interest to me. Also, besides my involvement in the thing, which a lot of these stories always end up with me being involved, as many in the audience know, but I didn't want to give it away, because of this ending. But the reality of it is I was at a art walk a number of years ago where you go from one art gallery to another, Eric, you know what I mean? Or like, it's like a bar hop kind of a thing, but they have it here in LA a couple of times. So there was a guy there I met with a long beard. He was in a heavy metal band, and he started telling me that he too, he knew Eugene Ingram. And I wasn't saying anything. He started telling me about Eugene Ingram. And I said, yeah, that sounds familiar. That's the guy. And I tell him what I just said. I tell him my story. And he says, yeah, this guy's been bothering me. He's been threatening me. And I go, well, what did you do? And he says, I didn't do anything. And I said, well, you must have done something. I did this indirectly. I mean, I don't know what this guy's crimes were, but I said I was linked to it because of this. I go, well, how are you linked to this thing? And the guy's like, he's stroking his long beard. And he says, well, I think it was the name of my band that did it. I go, what? He goes, yeah, they didn't like the name of my band. The lawyers called me up and threatened me. They harassed me over the name of my band. They said, if I don't change it, I'm going to, be sued into oblivion. And I go, what? I go, what the hell was the name of your band? And he goes, it was really innocuous. I said, well, what was it? And he goes, L. Ron Hitler. I just start cracking up, right? And I go, they did all that to you because of L. Ron Hitler? He goes, yeah, they got very upset about L. Ron Hitler. So eventually the guy says, look, I've had enough of this. I can't fight them in court. They started to harass his friends and everything else. So he says, I can't harass them. I don't want to fight them in court. They're bothering the bandmates in his band. They're hassling them, these poor schnooks. So he says, I changed the name of the band. And I said, not for nothing. I go, what did you change the name to? And he goes, well, I changed it. Obviously, I had to come up with a creative name. I go, what is it? He goes, Nosta Dumbass. He changed it from L. Ron Hitler to Nosta Dumbass. And I thought, that's a good way to end this show on that note, Eric, because I think we've come full circle on Scientology.
Wow. Yeah, we have. But good news, we haven't come full circle on support from the community. And I put up a little poll too, try something different. Have you liked and subbed yet? Please do so. Bruce Ryan became a YouTube member.
In the house. He's in the house.
Yes, he is. Thank you very much. And Phantom Boomer, kind of like you with your microphone.
Hotbots.
Yep. And D Car loves his channel. Thank you very much. Bill Kinsella is quiet but to the point.
I know who this guy is. I've seen his name before, maybe. Bill Kinsella. Maybe I'm thinking the novelist J.P. Kinsella.
Well, he might be in the comments too.
He wrote Shoeless Joe.
Grifter Wannabe. Thank you.
Listen, the best gay glowy convention. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay, well, and that's somebody who's probably knows Nick Rekieta because he's very famously late and gay, and it's spelled Ghey. So you can see them.
Okay.
However, Jimmy R. Jump is a new member. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think this guy joined Locals too or something. I mean,
yes.
He was asking me what you get in Locals. He wanted to see all the merchandise before he joined.
You could do it for free. Follow for free, sure.
Right. No, but he wanted to see what was behind the paywall.
Right. Well, hey, come on.
So I don't know if it works like that.
Yeah, it's like we're like the huckster.
I told him to talk to you. I don't know how the thing physically works, but I doubt it works like that if we give up the documents and then they don't join. But I think he joined.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the huckster on the street. He says, "Come on inside, look at the." Well, you can't. He's not going to bring them outside,
right?
To display. You got to go in the tent,
right?
Nobody sees it. And we got Georgina back. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to listen. This is a good episode. Even I like this episode. It involves me, but I mean, there's a lot of good information. No. The reason I mention this is because people are saying there's a lot about Scientology on the internet. Absolutely, but I personalize it. I'm in the middle of this one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I thank you, Georgina. Fantastic.
Yes, definitely. And
did you see a movie, Oblivion of Scientology? Again, a lot of these science fiction movies are homages to Hubbard, and they may not be exactly Battlefield Earth or from his literature, but there's themes and elements of the movies they're doing that are homages to Hubbard.
Yeah, fair enough. 96% of the people said that they have liked and subbed, by the way.
They would?
That they did like and sub. 96%.
Okay.
That's a
96%.
Wow, yeah.
Just 4% just I ain't gonna do it no matter what you tell me.
Probably. Might even be more than 4. Might have might have a few people who are hedging their bets a little bit.
Right.
But we do appreciate the support.
Yeah, and I do want to do an episode on Jack Parsons, and I will. And I just wanted to do these back to back because there was so much information that was rattling around my head. I didn't want to lose it. And thanks for listening. Thank you. But Hunley's got you.
I do. Oswald got out. People had seen him in the center, and they were going to put
out in Hemet. He was in the hole with some of the other Scientologists, and he somehow got out. And he's clear. He's clear.
And everybody can help Oswald out. Merch link is not below. There's a link in the description. YouTube's really squirrely about it and doesn't always show the merch on the channel. I don't know why. But there's also a tab that says merchandise or store. So anybody who wants to check that out, we have t-shirts, we have polos, got a bucket hat that has fallen down, but all kinds of merchandise, and of course, locals. We're always putting up different links there.
I put up some documentary footage, some behind the paywall, some in front of it, to be both sides of Cruz and Miscavige and some others.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, there's going clear the documentary, but you know, again, it's like Germany versus Scientology. Who do you root for? Gibney versus Hubbard. You know, I don't know, you know, which side to be on for that one.
God only knows.
God only knows what Gibney, you know, his attack on Assange and some other things that he's done. But I want to thank everyone for the PayPal money for the books. I'm getting some books on Parsons, so that's going to a good cause on the Jack Parsons front, some rare books. I want to get into Parsons a little bit more, even though he had a short life. There's some good books out there, so thank you.
No, that's awesome. And on that note, to leave with a beautiful picture in everybody's mind of our discussion.
Oh no,
we have a rather fine pair. So I think this is a good picture to close on for everyone.
Oh, I love this picture.
Look at
matching motorcycles and matching Ducati uniforms, and oh yes, this is absolutely beautiful. What a great way to close out. I mean, apparently Cruz told this girl from Italy that she didn't understand Miscavige's Philadelphia accent. She was Italian. The one they set him up with as his girlfriend, lasted 90 days, by the way. She ends up being on Homeland, I think, the TV show. But she didn't understand Miscavige's accent, and Cruz went berserk and got rid of her. And he said famously, there's Hubbard, there's Miscavige, and there's me. That's the pecking order. And she was done. So keep that in mind the next time you see Tom Cruise.
And on that note, folks, enjoy the show.
And the weekend.